is Andrew Caulfils, and I'm the chair of the Bermuda Race Organizing Committee. On behalf of the more than 60 volunteers from the CCA and the RBYC, I wish to welcome you to the 2024 Bermuda Race Skippers Meeting. Though we are all pining for the intimacy of our traditional meeting at the Jane Pickens, it's our hope that by streaming this meeting, it enables all competitors to join. Congratulations on achieving the most critical part of the Bermuda race, getting to the starting line. Before we get to the heart of the meeting, I'd like to take a moment to recognize and thank all of our incredible sponsors, and in particular, our presenting sponsors, Bermuda Tourism, Rhode Island Commerce, and Goslings. And a special thank you to Orsted, our newest sponsor, presenting our Starting Line live show. Now I'd like to introduce Commodore Gowell of the Cruising Club of America and Commodore Roberts of the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club.
On behalf of the more than 1,300 members of the Cruising Club of America, welcome to the 2024 edition of the legendary Newport Bermuda Race. When you cross the starting line tomorrow, you will have completed half of the arduous journey, preparing yourself, your boat, and your shipmates for the always different race to Bermuda. The next part will be a lot more fun. Racing against your fellow sailors through the variable conditions you'll undoubtedly find. The first to smell the hibiscus, savor a dark and stormy, and enjoy the beauty of Bermuda and her people. Since the first race to Bermuda in 1906, the starting area of this race has changed numerous times, from New York to New London to Montauk to Marblehead to the old Brenton Tower to Castle Hill. And for this year's edition, we're moving to the historic Fort Adams in Newport. The Bermuda race has been the CCA's signature event since 1926, and we're excited to bring a celebration of the race to Fort Adams and strengthen the connection between the race, the competitors, the Newport community, and with the live-streamed Starting Line live show to the world. We're grateful to our sponsors, the state of Rhode Island, Bermuda Tourism, and Goslings, and to the many other sponsors and supporters for helping us present this race and bring a new event to Fort Adams. And I want to say a huge thank you to our race chairman, Andrew Caulfils, and the dozens of volunteers on the Bermuda Race Organizing Committee, at the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club, and the New York Yacht Club Race Committee, without whose efforts, imagination, innovation, cooperation, and hard work, this race would not be possible. Don't be over early. You have 636 miles to go. Sail safe, sail fast, and we'll see you in Bermuda.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club, we are thrilled to once again co-host the 2024 Newport to Bermuda race. It is a momentous year for us here at RBYC. We're celebrating almost 100 years co-hosting with the Cruising Club of America for the 53rd edition of the Bermuda race. We're celebrating our 180th birthday, similar to our other honored partner in the shorthanded return, the New York Yacht Club. And in addition, we recently received our new royal patron, King Charles III. I cannot express how excited we are to welcome you all to the Bermuda at the end of your race. As you sail into our picturesque harbor with turquoise waters, you're not just arriving at a destination, but stepping into a tradition of seafaring excellence and camaraderie that spans generations. At the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club, you'll find more than just a berth for your vessel. You will discover a vibrant community of sailors and kindred spirits, along with some amazing entertainment in cooperation with Goslings. From the moment you step ashore, our staff and our members are here to ensure your stay is nothing short of exceptional. I'll end with a huge thank you to our race chair, Andrew Caulfils, for his incredibly impressive leadership of this race. Also, thank you to our very own past Commodore, Summers Kemp, who has stepped in as principal race officer. And special thanks to all the volunteers and staff from the Bermuda Race Organizing Committee, the CCA, the New York Yacht Club, and to our team here in Bermuda, especially to our staff and my fellow flag officers. Finally, I would like to thank our partners in Bermuda, the Bermuda Tourism Authority, Goslings, the Corporation of Hamilton, His Majesty's Customs, and the Immigration Department. I'm incredibly envious of you all as you begin your 636-mile journey across the Atlantic tomorrow. But I look forward to personally greeting you in Bermuda with a warm smile and a cold, dark, and stormy. Have a great race.
We have impaneled an international jury for this event who will be in Bermuda to adjudicate any issues that arise. We thank them in advance for their service to this race and truly hope that their time in Bermuda will be spent relaxing with a rum swizzle rather than being in the protest room. The international jury has asked me to share a few details about interacting with them. If you have any questions of the jury, please phrase them clearly so they may be answered with yes or no, and email them to jury@bermudarace.com. Questions the jury chooses to answer are posted on the official notice board in the Additional Event Documents section. Protests are to be submitted on the protest board, where you may also submit a request for redress, a scoring inquiry, or a penalty acknowledgement. A link to the protest board is found on the official notice board. The Bermuda Race Organizing Committee is grateful to have the New York Yacht Club start our race again this year. Led by Race Committee Chair and PRO Forrest Williams and New York Yacht Club Vice Commodore Claire Harrington on the signal boat, we could not be in better hands. I would also like to thank John Vins for again donating the use of his beautiful motor yacht. After the start of the race, PRO Somers Kemp is serving as the chair of the race committee. The race committee have asked me to share a few points to be highlighted. You should be well aware of the racing area chartlets that have been shared on the website, as well as the details in the SI. The expected starting area is Alpha, between Fort Adams and House on the Rock. The check-in vessel is the MJM 35 Moondog, donated by McMichaels. Check-in is on VHF 06, not VHF 72. The location of the check-in vessel closer to the bridge is intentional to keep the fleet awaiting their start sequence well north of the starting box. Please stay well clear of the starting area until your starting group is in sequence. Class breaks were made available on the race website at 1600 today and can be browsed or downloaded by clicking the button View Who's Entered. A starting group list with start times was posted to the official notice board at the same time. By mid-morning tomorrow, the class breaks will be updated with TCF ratings for the fleet. We'll send a notice to the primary mobile when this update is posted. Please note SI 4.2, boats shall fly the numeral pennants of their starting group, not their class. A few elements of the NOR and SIs are worth highlighting, as they are new or particularly noteworthy. At the start, all boats are encouraged to refresh their understanding of NOR 2.4 and SI 8.4. Boats should not attempt to return and restart if they believe they started early. Keep going, we'll see you in Bermuda. While racing, all boats are encouraged to pay attention to SI 11.3, and in particular, C through F. A list of random boats has been selected to be called during the race. It's not imperative that you answer, but you should be monitoring for missed calls and respond within the stated time. At the finish, be prepared to receive an SMS or text from the race committee on the primary onboard mobile phone number. Please activate your mobile when you reach Kitchen Shoals on approach to Bermuda, so you can receive and submit your finish declaration as soon as possible after finishing. After the finish, the Certificate of Compliance checklist will be published to your account after the start of the race. It will appear as a new task in the entry system. Complete the checklist before presenting for checkout at the RBYC duty desk. As part of this checklist, you'll be asked to upload an image of your onboard training certificate. PRO Williams, PRO Kemp, and the entire race committee wish you a safe and enjoyable race.
Hello, my name is Barbara Masser, and I am the medical consult for this year's Newport to Bermuda race. I'm an emergency physician at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, and this is the 7th time that I have served in the medical consult role. In this presentation, I'm just going to briefly tell you how to contact me, when to contact me. We're going to review specifically what information you should have available for each of your crew members, the information that I'm going to ask you about in the case of an incident, and then we'll talk briefly, about what to do if things escalate and we need to transfer care to the U.S. Coast Guard. So in terms of my contact information, here it is. This will be available on the emergency contact sheet that the race committee will provide you. That is my personal cell phone, and I'm available 24/7 throughout the race. And that is also my email. And I have found in prior races that email is actually a very effective way to communicate. If you have a little bit of time and you don't need to get in touch with me immediately. It's a little clearer, and I do check my email. It says every 6 hours, but honestly, sadly, probably every half an hour. So you will get a prompt response. There is another physician available as a backup in the event that you can't reach me. His name is David Schoenfeld. He is also an emergency physician in our group, and that is his personal cell phone. And in the event that you can't reach either two of us, there is a landline, which is the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center Emergency Department. This was probably more pertinent back in the 2010 when we first began this, so I'm dating myself. But if you need to, don't get in touch with myself or Dave, call this number, ask for the emergency physician attending, and they will do their very best to help you and to put you in contact with me. So the question arises is, when is it appropriate to call me? Specifically, for any unresponsive victim or circumstances with obvious life threat or acuity, you should be calling the U.S. Coast Guard directly. Think of this as a corollary to if you were on land and you felt the need to call 911. Those sorts of circumstances should be directly called and contact the U.S. Coast Guard. If you have a situation in which you would call your primary care doctor, or you might go to an urgent care, or you might drive yourself to the emergency department, very appropriate to call me first, and I may direct you to call the U.S. Coast Guard directly at that time, or we will do our very best to work together to help the situation. So for each crew member on board, I would like you to keep, if you can, in a folder somewhere, some specific medical information. So specifically, any medications the crew member may take, any medical problems that they might have. So history of surgeries, medical history of heart disease, etc. Allergies to medication specifically, and their immunization status. So when you call me, these are the things that I'm going to ask you. Specifically, we're going to start off with a level of consciousness. Is your crew member alert? Are they confused? This is a very important piece of information. And then we'll talk about what happened. What is the mechanism of injury? What symptoms are they having, etc. It'll be important for you to have their medical history available, and very importantly, the medications that they take. And then we'll try to get a sense of what do they look like. And that will start with vital signs, blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, temperature if appropriate, and pulse oximetry. I'm asking each vessel, if you can, in this year's race, to have a portable pulse oximeter on board. This is a device that measures the concentration of oxygen in your blood and is a very helpful adjunct and very good, very helpful in terms of determining how any respiratory issues, et cetera, with your patients. So if you can get that, they're quite affordable, and it'd be great to have that on board. And then I'll just ask you to, let me know of any physical findings. Is there swelling? Is there redness? Is there bruising, et cetera, deformity? And we'll talk through that. And we'll end with what have you done so far? Have you given the patient any medication? Have you stabilized the injury, et cetera? Additional information that also pertinent is, where are you? How far are you from port or rescue? Any medications and specific medical equipment on board, and this will be, specific to the incident we're talking about. And then the medical skill level of your crew. Do you have any nurses, physicians, EMTs, et cetera, on board? So that's the kind of information that we'll need to have. And with that and any incident, we will I'll work with you together. We may be following up on specific intervals and making sure things are getting better, et cetera. And we'll work through things. Now, in the event that things do not get better or they get worse, your crew member the condition becomes more serious, we'll need to transfer care to the U.S. Coast Guard. And I will tell you directly that it is now time to transfer the care directly to the U.S. Coast Guard, and I will have you contact them through the normal procedures directly. I will also contact them myself and let them know what is going on and what we have done up until this point, and apprise them of the situation and of my concerns. But at that point, the U.S. Coast Guard will be your single point of contact and will assume care of the situation. Having that clarity and that clear transfer of care is very important. So I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to review with you today. Again, I'm here throughout the race. I'm here to help. I'm happy to help, and please reach out to me if you have any questions, issues, etc. And I wish you all a wonderful race. All my best.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Cooper here, running the Fleet Comms office. We are this year not at Sail Newport, rather we are at the Innovation Newport Incubator Hub, I guess it is, out towards the end of Broadway. If you feel the urge to come by at 2 a.m. with a cup of coffee, that would be grand. By now, you should have all had what was last year a blue sheet, but it is a waterproof piece of paper that has all the critical numbers that you might need during the course of the race. I hope you've had a look at it, passed it around the crew so that they all kind of get a handle on where the numbers are for different people, and it's perfectly stowed away in the chart table. Satellite phones are a great invention, but in the scheme of communications, they're not a terrestrial cell phone or a landline. In terms of signal, sometimes they are only as good as a single sideband. There's a lot of static and modulation in them. When you are speaking on the satellite phone, particularly with us, if you would please speak slowly and clearly, or at least not as though you are trying to get your 14-year-old upstairs to clean his room. It doesn't have to be exactly so, but the 1950s BBC radio announcer is a viable template. We in the office cannot tell you what to do if you call us up with the situation, with one exception, and that is to tell you to do what you think is appropriate in the situation. We can direct communications to various entities, but we cannot tell you whether you have to do X, Y, or Z. You guys have all been sailing, guys and girls have been sailing long enough. You've all been through the Safety at Sea seminars, and you're not out there unless we've got a pretty good idea that you know what you're doing. So the responsibility for action, as always, defers back to the master of the vessel. If you elect to withdraw from the race for whatever reason, please call us and let us know. If there's any issues we need to be monitoring, if there's an injury on the boat or you have broken equipment, please let us know. We will be watching you on the tracker until you reach safe harbor, which is the destination, not necessarily the company. And then please call us when you arrive alongside the dock so we can cross you off our watch list. And lastly, I was the guy who took the call in 22 from the Morgan and Marietta incident. I passed that up the protocol chain as usual, and then about an hour later, I got a phone call from a Coast Guard officer, and they asked me if I had next of kin information. So I really didn't like that phone call one little bit. So ladies and gentlemen, have a great race and please stay on the boat, and I hope I don't have to talk to you until I get to Bermuda. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Kate Summers here from the media team. I'm here to quickly talk to you about how to follow the race and how you can share your stories from out there so we can share them with the world, because bigger and better than ever, we are having a starting line live show kicking off tomorrow with the first start at 2 p.m. And we are broadcasting that around the world via bermudarace.com. And if you're lucky enough to also have friends and family who are joining us at Fort Adams tomorrow for the party, we will have a big screen there with the commentary through there. Or if you're headed up to Castle Hill, they will also be streaming it as well. So the Starting Line live show is very exciting, all new aerial footage coming with us, and we are lucky enough to have Ken Reed from North Sails, who's also the current record holder, joining us, Jessie Fielding, who's done the race many times, and the one and only Cole Brower, who before she took on her Around the World feat this year, she actually won the Bermuda 1-2 on this exact course last year after doing it multiple times, and also did the Bermuda race in 2022 with the Mud Rats youth team as a coach. So they'll be bringing all the great insights, and it's going to be a great time. So we hope you can tell them to tune in, and it will be on our website and recorded, so you guys will have the chance to watch it after when you get home. Once the boats start, the Palm Beach Motor Yacht Race Tracker is the app you're going to want to download on YB Races, and it will also be embedded on our website. That's how to follow all of them. And because of our new forecast corrected time factor and our new entry results portal, those results will be syncing together. And so the tracker will be live with live results. So you actually will know how people are doing based on their ratings in this new scoring system. So the good, exciting news is we're going to know who won the races and the divisions provisionally pretty much when they cross the line, as long as there's no protest or anything. So that's exciting. Real updates right there. We'll be sharing news throughout our social media and our website. So all our social media is at Bermuda Race, and everything, photos of the race will all be there. And there will also be photos available for purchase after the race. Then that will all be through BermudaRace.com. Now, how can you share with us what's going on out there? Because after we cover that great start, we're not out there with you. But thanks to many of you with Starlink, you might be able to send some stuff back to us, or you can share it with us when you get to Bermuda. So how to share with us, BermudaRace.com/upload. That will take you to a one-way Dropbox where you can just upload straight from your phones. These are photos and videos we got in 2022 that were shared with us. So it would be great. Turn the camera on yourself. Tell us what you're seeing out there. We'd love to see everything from what you're eating to what you're seeing in the weather. And it really brings people and that experience for people around the world. So we love to use it, and we love to use it after the race to help promote it because we want to keep growing. And the last thing is, if you're doing an email off your boat to like tell your friends and family what's going on, we'd love if you could also just CC me, media@bermudarace.com, and then we'll have some of those stories and we can share in our race blogs as we're going along. And then if you are using social media out there, or when you get to Bermuda and you're uploading things, just tag Bermuda Race or hashtag Bermuda Race, and that will get our attention so we can share it. So that's how you can follow the race and how you can share with us. Have a great time. Can't wait to see everything you're going to share.
Hi, I'm John Manzolillo representing Ørsted and the Ørsted Marine Affairs team, here to talk about our offshore wind farms that you'll see as you head offshore. So if you look on this chart, what you'll see is the constructed South Fork wind farm to the south. And then around it is a partially constructed Revolution wind farm. Now you should have got your chart updates all set, so you'll have all these potential towers, but I'll point out a couple of facts and features here about the wind farm. As I mentioned, South Fork is fully installed, 13 structures, all the way up to 788 feet. Revolution is only partially installed. The red squares indicate the positions that are installed, and that list is also on this slide. While you're underway, you'll see that we're working in this bottom right corner, the bottom southeast corner of Rev, and the installation area that we'll see is Alpha Papa 14, AP14, where our construction vessels will be located. That's most of our construction vessels to be to the east of the field, but you will see a few vessels, and I have a slide about that here later. Partially constructed towers in Revolution Wind look like this yellow monopile here on the screen. It's about 75 feet tall, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. As you come through the field, there'll be a safety vessel. You can be contacted with the call sign Ørsted Safety Vessel on channels 16, 13, and 1080. The main construction vessel has a Coast Guard safety zone around it of 500 meters, and there'll be some other vessels around it out to about 1.5 miles. Now let's take the next slide. So on the left side of your screen, you see the large construction vessel Boca Lift 2. She'll be installing monopile Alpha Papa 14. Around her, you've got the bubble curtain vessel, the Bear, and a safety vessel. On the bottom right side of your screen, you can see some of the support vessels that will be around the Boca Lift 2 during her installation works, and they're there to manage our permit requirements to look for marine life. In the center right of your screen, you can see the Boca Lift 2 at sunset. And since you'll be in the field around the evening time, that's essentially what it'll look like. And for relative size, she's 750 or so feet, 230 meters. In the top right of your screen, you'll see the Boca Lift 1, a similar vessel. She'll be somewhere else in the field working on another partially constructed tower. And she'll also have a 500-meter Coast Guard safety zone around her. Next slide, please. So on the final slide that I have here, we'll just talk about the Revolution Wind and South Fork wind towers themselves. As I mentioned, South Fork is completely completed, so it has the entire wind turbine itself. And the wind turbines, whether they're partially or completely completed, are all marked with yellow quick flashing lights. On the Revolution Wind partially completed towers, those quick flashing lights have a range of 5 nautical miles. And the outside towers of South Fork have 5 nautical mile range as well. And then the rest vary between 2 and 3 nautical mile range. There's also some sound signals out on South Fork, which can be activated by clicking your radio on 83 alpha 5 times. You can see for scale that the letters, the alphanumeric letters, I mentioned Alpha Papa 14 will be worked on. The alphanumeric letters are about 10 feet high, and at the bottom left of your screen, you can see 2 guys on the platform that gives you a sense of scale. There's no restrictions around the partially or completely completed towers unless there are vessels working there. So with that, Ørsted, as a sponsor of the race, and the Marine Affairs team particularly wishes you good luck and safe travels out to Bermuda. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Summers Kemp. I'm your principal race officer. Let's briefly go over the approach to Bermuda to make sure that you get there safely. Please be aware we are surrounded by a lot of reefs. Depending on your angle of approach to Bermuda, you might see Gibbs Hill Lighthouse first at the eastern end of the island. Please be aware that at the current time, this light is extinguished. At nighttime, you will see St. David's Lighthouse and the Bermuda International Airport Aero Beacon, and they're visible from 15 miles in good weather. Please also note that it is a requirement of the race that you activate your navigation side lights and stern light when you're within 5 nautical miles of a mark. Kitchen Shoal Beacon is approximately 5 miles from the finish, and this will be the mark where you will first make contact with the finish line team on VHF channel 72. They will also be monitoring your AIS and yellow brick trackers. At this time, please note, also activate your primary onboard mobile device in anticipation that the race committee will be sending you an SMS text soon after you finish. This is a view from the ocean looking up at St. David's Lighthouse. Some of you may have seen this before. It is an obvious landmark. The dedicated finish line volunteers led by past Commodore Leatrice Oatley are manning the scope and the communications deck. We couldn't do this race without them, and we'd like to thank them. This is a closer look of the eastern end of the island. Please note that the finish line from your point perspective will be 291 magnetic. The finish line is in very close proximity to a line of reefs off the east end, and is a requirement of you once you sail through the finish line that you turn seaward again and turn around the most seaward finish line mark by a good distance before making your approach to the channel. Also note that the finish line buoys may not be specifically on the finish line bearing, as they do tend to drift around in the currents, and they will not have AIS on them. Once you've finished and after you have submitted your finished declaration, boats shall hail the race committee on channel 72 to confirm the receipt of their finish line declaration. After advising the race committee of the above and prior to entering the ship channel, please contact Bermuda Radio on VHF channel 27. Do not call them on channel 16. Their working channel is channel 27. This is an overhead view of the western end of the island with Dundonald Channel and the Great Sound, and you can see Two Rock Passage. The RBYC and RHADC marinas are going to be monitoring the race tracking to understand how many boats will be approaching after you've come up North Shore. Unless there's a significant number of boats arriving after midnight, the intention is not to berth boats between the hours of 12 midnight and 6 in the morning. You are instructed to anchor in Hamilton Harbor and await the marina's opening at 6 a.m. The RBYC marina will use channel VHF 74 and the RHADC marina will use channel 73. Please call those channels when you transit Two Rock. If you're arriving after midnight, it is imperative that you do not enter the marinas on your own. You must anchor in Hamilton Harbor and await instructions from the berthing teams. Yachts with any crew that have not pre-cleared by now Bermuda immigration in Newport must remain under quarantine, i.e. aboard the yacht, before proceeding with any non-cleared passports to meet the immigration officers when they're available at RBYC. The duty desk opens at 8 a.m. each day. This is a quick overview of the RBYC Marina. Please ensure that you follow the directions of the berthing teams that will be on hand, regardless however many times you've been to Bermuda before. We all know that little shallow spots tend to move, and they need to be aware of your draft. Some quick Q&As. Do I clear Bermuda Customs Immigration in St. George's? Some of you may have cruised to Bermuda before and are used to clearing customs and immigration down in St. George's. At the end of the race, all skippers must report to the RBYC after finishing. You will not be clearing in through St. George's. You will clear in through the RBYC. You must visit the duty desk to hand in your medical forms and other items, including the transponder. For customs clearance, skippers must submit their arrival notification at sailclear.com before starting the race. I would assume most of you have done that already. On the return delivery to Newport, or for wherever you're going back on the US East Coast or beyond, you can submit your updates to SailClear at least 24 hours before your intended departure and send an email to ammckay@gov.bm, and then your clearance certificate should be available for collection from the RBYC duty desk within 24 hours. This will avoid you having to call into St. George's when you leave the island. Should you fly a Q flag? Only if crew members are contagious or any crew member did not pre-clear immigration in Newport, or if you've been instructed to do so by Bermuda Customs or Immigration upon your arrival. Are you allowed to leave the boat upon your arrival? Only if the entire crew were pre-cleared by Bermuda Immigration Officer in Newport. If you're berthed at the RHADC or elsewhere on the island, fly the Q flag and stay aboard if any crew were not cleared in Newport, and the RHADC are arranging shuttles for their skippers to the RBYC using their boat, which is named Defender. By now, if you requested a duty-free fuel voucher in Newport, the scheduled dates for refueling Newport to Bermuda boats are Saturday, June 29th and Sunday, June 30th. There are appointments available every half hour between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. and additional appointments will be provided if sufficient demand exists. 2 fueling stations will be available, so 2 boats can fuel in each slot. They're non-transferable vouchers, and they're good for any amount of fuel you wish to purchase. Please visit the duty desk in Bermuda at the RBYC for more information. The RBYC duty desk this year will be located in the club's Calabash room, which can be accessed by the side of the building off of the terrace. Let's talk about trash and recycling in Bermuda. Trash and recycling will be dropped off in the large dumpster behind the club. When you're sailing to Bermuda, please try and separate your recycling from your trash and be aware that Bermuda only recycles tin, aluminum, and glass. The bar, once you get here, will be providing reusable cups. Please keep your cup and bring it back for refills. When you're done with it, don't throw it in the trash. Place it at the end of the bar and we will reuse it or recycle it ourselves. I look forward to seeing you all once you arrive in Bermuda and welcoming you to the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club. Have a safe and quick trip.
Afternoon. Well, I think most of you know I'm Frank Boland, and I've been talking to you about Gulfstream for a few number of years here. Amazing how time goes by. And I want to remind you that the reason that we're interested in the Gulfstream is several reasons. Some folks are interested in the history, but not so much apt for us, at least not in the next few days. The Gulfstream is a major western boundary current, and it represents a distinct barrier between the cooler waters of the continental shelf and the warmer waters of the Sargasso Sea. That temperature contrast and an abundance of warm water and the evaporation that's associated with it makes the stream a weather breeder. And for a fair number of years, the weather forecasts in the vicinity of the stream weren't particularly good because our observational data out there and our understanding of the effect of that evaporation and heat exchange across the stream was not well understood. That's gotten better, but it's an important factor to remember. The stream tends to be a weather breeder. The other aspect, of course, is the stream as a current field. Maximum currents on the order of 250 centimeters a second or 5 knots. And it can represent a significant sea state factor, wind against the current, as well as set and drift, be pushed around. Now, some of you may be less than interested in studying the stream because, of course, you have a consultant working with you. But that's really ill-advised from my standpoint, because very often you'll find that conditions encountered are somewhat different than conditions predicted. So you become a much, much better client by understanding a bit of the stream yourself and by studying the stream yourself before the race. And that's why on a fair number of occasions we stress preparation. So let's get into what's going on this year. We've had a very interesting spring. For those of you that have been following the stream, now you might recall in past years, we noticed some difference in the behavior of meanders in the stream. The normal behavior where a meander would form and slowly migrate at some rate to the east was very often interrupted by a regression. The meander might form up and actually move back towards Cape Hatteras as opposed to moving eastward towards Europe, deepen and possibly break off, forming a ring of one kind or another, cold or warm core. Very often an abundance of warm core rings move up onto the shelf and have been affecting weather along the shelf and into the Gulf of Maine. Now this spring we saw some of that, but instead of seeing this aberrant behavior in terms of the evolution of the meander, we saw very rapid change over very short periods of time. A meander would form up and in 3 or 4 days disappear. The stream was somewhat arcade in form day 1, and by day 4 or 5 it was linear. Holy Christmas, what's going on? That really caused us some concern because, of course, the 3 or 4 day time scale is of significance for a race like Bermuda. You figure strategies on day 1 that are going to be holding through day 4, and you'll find that they may not. So time scales of variability are very important to us. We've been fortunate over the last month or so to see more normal conditions. I'm showing you now the stream on the end of May, at the end of May, and you can see a fairly prominent meander. I hope you can see my cursor move around a little bit. Fairly prominent meander. All right. And under normal conditions, we might expect that meander to migrate off to the east. And lo and behold, it did. Here we are at 4-day composites. This is now on the 4th of June. The 4th of June, and you can see our meander. Now, mind you, these are 4-day averages. So there may be a little bit of detail that's lost in this, averaged out. But you can see, here's your meander, and it might be, this is 37 degrees north, this is 4 degrees, 4 times 60, 240 miles. Get an idea of the scale here, okay? So there's the 4th, here's the 10th, progressively closer to the rum line. And here we are now on the 15th, and here's somewhat like the 19th. You might notice, at least in the composite, the 4-day composite, that 19th composite is showing an interesting distribution of warmer waters north of the stream. Okay, here's the main body of the stream. Down in here, and we got a little bit of warm water. Remember, anytime you see a little warmer water, you might have some small currents associated with it, weak currents associated with it. Down here, we're running 3 to 5 knots. Up in here, you might be seeing a half a knot to a knot, something on that order. But of course, some of that may be an artifact of the compositing process. So be careful. Point here is that meander certainly looks to be in close proximity to the run line. Black line is the run line. Here's a little better view of this. This is a single day composite from Rutgers. And you can see a little more detail. We're not quite as parallel to the run line. We're not quite as in contact with the run line. This is on the 19th. You'll get all of this in my latest Gulfstream note, which will be posted this afternoon. You can see that the flows here coming down, a little more angularity between the expected flow and the run line than assumed in here. This guy might suggest to you that the flow is more nearly parallel to the run line. Looks like it's a little more oblique to the run line. We're seeing the same sort of thing if we look carefully at the altimetry-based plots. And for those of you that have been following my stuff for a number of years, you know that I really favor these data. We found them to be very accurate. I will be looking at this very carefully and plotting out our strategies for the race. What are we seeing here? We see a number of interesting features. Here is the main body of the stream, and it shows the flows. Again, this guy is saying it looks like they're more nearly parallel. You might think about entering to the west of the run line. This now is 35 degrees. This is 40 degrees. So that might be 30 to 50 miles east of the run line down in here. Okay, coming down. And then as we get down to something on the order of 37 north, pick a number. You can check this out and call me a liar. You see that the current crosses the run line at more or less right angles, coming right across here, and then goes back up. To the south of the main body, that is the main body, to the south of the main body, we've got two counterclockwise rotating features, one about here to the west of the run line, one to the east of the run line. Okay, both of them drifting to the west, about a mile a day or something on that order, but they've been drifting slowly. We've been watching this distribution, this pattern for several days and over the week, and we haven't seen an awful lot of change in 3 or 4 days. The counter-rotating this guy here is producing adverse currents, north-going, northwest-going currents, okay, over an area of probably 60 to 100 miles. So it bears taking a look at. You might see that there is favorable current over here associated with this eastern ring, okay? Again, 30 miles or so. Maybe you don't have to get quite that far. It looks like it could be right on the run line coming down here to avoid any effect of this ring. So we might come in here and we might get back over here. And then we run into the third counterclockwise rotating feature, this ring that's just to the north of Bermuda. This is a biggie, okay, 100 miles plus in diameter, and is affecting a significant portion of the run line, and with currents that may approach 2 knots. The maximum current in these rings is probably on the order of 3 knots and more likely right down in this region to the west of the run line. But you might find yourself, if you were right along the run line and then even a little bit west, running into a 2-knot adverse current. You might carry a 1-knot adverse current even to the east of the line. How do you avoid that? Wishing by God, to some extent. It all depends on what the winds are going to be, what's going to be allowing us to do, because you're so close to Bermuda. You don't want to get too far off east or west, that close to Bermuda, unless there's very favorable winds. And I don't have a good sense of what the winds are going to be in 3 or 4 days right now. There's been some talk of southerlies to southeasterlies, and that, of course, will govern how you manage this last ring. So that's it in a nutshell. You've got some interesting features to look at. How well do the models represent this? Well, this is the Mercator model, Mercator Mercator, the European model from the Caprice Group. And we find this to be an excellent model, and it provides this is now the current plot, and it's showing currents. Let's see if I can get the cursor to show up here. It's showing currents crossing the line Obliques, more like what those Rutgers data was saying than the altimetry-based plot. But one of the things that's interesting is the model is showing you one ring, two rings, not much in the way of ring down by Bermuda, although there's a suggestion of it sitting here. Excuse me. Model looks pretty, overall, this model looks pretty similar to all of the data we've been looking at. And the last plot, this is the real-time ocean forecast system, NOAA's model. It's a little less in agreement, but fundamentally it's the same, although it doesn't really give us much indication of what the rings look like. Your model is like your choice of wine, entirely up to you. They're both reasonably representative. I might bias myself a little bit to the Mercator. So that's it in a nutshell. It looks like we're at least, if all indications of the last week to 3 weeks hold, the meander will continue to migrate to the east. We don't expect great instability before the start of the return trips on the 30th or so. But we'll be looking at that in more detail when we get down to Bermuda for the double-handed race coming back. Through all of this, because of some of the uncertainties in evolution, counsel caution and careful analysis of the what-if factor. If I decide to go here and that meander isn't there, what does it mean to me in terms of speed over the ground to the target? Always assume the worst in laying out strategy. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that we're not here to answer a bunch of questions, but you know my email, and I'll be seeing somebody in Newport. So have a safe trip and an enjoyable one.